Hey, everybody.
Welcome back to Chortle Cast. I'm one of your hosts, Jake, and with me as always, the Stream King, the Far Cry guy, the man who may cry devil, and the Karen in
Karen from outer
space who's
space
better than
that's
the
better than the
human
human
race.
race.
Steven.
Sure.
That's him. That's the
Hey,
guy.
that's
What's
me.
up, buddy?
I hope that everything worked and that frame rate of the gods. Okay, good, great. We did
There
get
you go.
confirmation that frame rate is fixed. Yeah, I hope that everything's fixed because
We're doing this live,
we're doing this
Steven.
live.
This is not the first Chortle Cast that's ever been live, but it is one of the first Chortle Casts that we're doing live from a distance. We've done
Yes.
some lives where we've actually been in person, and those have been kind of like special podcast episodes. But this
Right.
is like we're actually trying to do this live. So
The whole new thing.
we've it's a whole new thing, a whole new deal that we're trying here. Because of course this is Cast, the official podcast of Chortle Games, where we talk about video games, TV shows, movies, anime, whatever the heck we want to talk about. Normally this podcast airs every Monday at 12 o'clock Central Standard Time, but I've been so freaking busy with all these. I'm shooting weddings. I've got actual work happening. My child is going to be born in less than a month. Like we're down to weeks. We're all taking bets on we're taking bets on like how quickly he's gonna come, what week he's gonna come. If you want to place your bets in chat, we'll throw you in the lot. But just been very
What
busy,
is
very busy.
what
So
does the winner of the bet get?
they get just unending pride.
Do they
You know what
get
I
to be a godparent?
Sure, sure. Why not? You know what I mean? That's a great reward. So,
Great.
it's a you get to be a a peasant parent. I'm trying to think of like, if a godparent is like, if a godparent is like, because
Wow.
you know the role of a god. I don't know if you know this, Stephen. The role of a godparent is if you the parent dies,
Right.
and there is no immediate family either left alive or like is that is around that could take the child. The godparent is who would step in next. They're like
Course,
next in
right,
line.
right.
So I'm thinking like that's maybe a little too high of a
But
reward. So like what would be like if the godparent is like the top tier of friend, like what would be the second and third, what would you call like the second godparent? You know what I mean? Like what's the step below that? Because I would think like king parent or
Demigod
like
parent.
see that makes sense. Demigod parent, and then I'm thinking
Definitely
like
not
Phoenix
peasant.
Lord parent.
Definitely not peasant parent. That's awful.
Peasant is like way at the bottom. I was trying to take it way low.
You
Like,
overcorrected.
yeah, I way overcorrected. So we'll just go with the demigod parent. How's that sound? Is that good?
Love
Is that a
it.
good enough
Love it.
reward?
Winner
There you
of
go.
the birth date raffle for Asher.
That was a great, really long
It was.
tangent to do right here at the beginning of something completely new. People are like, "What's happening right now?" This is Chortlecast. We're doing it live. We are, of course, as always, we're showing gameplay for tonight's stream. The purposes of this, how we're doing it for the podcast. Steven is playing Returnal, which we're going to talk about more at the end of the stream. So if you're watching live, that's what you're seeing. You're watching Steven play it. If you're watching the podcast back later, that's what you're watching. And then if you're an audio listener, of course, you're not seeing any of that. We're not going to reference it a ton.
We
Obviously,
may do
we'll
sound
talk
effects.
about. We may do some sound effects. You're not getting any game audio. That's just some of the weird stuff. But that's how we do the podcast. That's just how we do the podcast. So we're turning that into a live element thing. So we're trying something new. We're trying to make this happen. If we weren't doing a live, there probably wouldn't have been a podcast that week. And we've already missed podcasts because again, I've been so busy. So we're just trying something new.
Right.
If you guys like this, we can probably do this better with more prep time. But even when we started this stream, it was working so bad we just like we actually restarted. This is the second round of trying this. So anyway, long story short, that's what we're doing. It's a live podcast. We've got some folks in the chat. We've got Mr. Monkey Doodle, aka JJ. We've got Not in the Gulag, and of course we've got Vortex here. Feel free to pop off in the chat. Let us know when you think my son is going to be born.
So
And chat along, have a conversation with us. This isn't going to be like a normal live stream where we are like constantly interacting with you. But as we go through our conversations like we would normally in a podcast, now we can actually look at the chat and like if you have something insightful to add that normally you just comment, we can see that live. And so we'll pull in some comments every now and then and go from there. Like right now, Vortex is saying, is there a parent ranking system?
There is
And
now.
I don't know if there is or not, but I mean, there's a dad and a mom, so like I don't really know how much further that could go. You know what I mean?
How much
Also,
further do you
Vortex
think
is-
it could go? Let us know in the comments of this podcast.
just put it in the chat.
I just want to mention, just because this was a funny mental image, when you said long story short, I thought I heard you say long story shirt, and I had this image of a guy wearing a t-shirt, but it has a lot of text on it, and it just tells a story.
I love
a long
that
story
so
shirt.
much. Like we should absolutely make that. The other thing I want to mention, Steven, is that I'm trying a new drink for the podcast.
Nice.
Instagram has got me so nailed down. You know how Instagram ads, Steven, you get Instagram ads for weird things, and sometimes you're like, man, Instagram knows me, and then sometimes you're like, this is kind of a weird.
This sounds like a
weird
counter
get.
ad for NordVPN.
Not yet, not yet.
Not
We're
yet. Okay.
But let me tell you, when I tell you that,
Hold on, I have to yell at my dog.
you know how?
Wait.
Oh, he's gonna go yell at a dog. See, this is what happens in a live podcast. You just get random things that happen that normally I might have edited out. This all just happens live. So, Steven, I don't know if he's back yet because he hasn't responded.
I'm
to
back.
me. Okay.
He was eating
Steven,
Minnie's food.
when I tell you that Instagram, you know how Robin Hood, he shoots like the arrow, it hits the bullseye.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, "Whoa, that's so impressive!" But then he like pops like 7 more that like split the arrows down.
Yeah.
You know
And
what I
they're
mean?
like, wow, you shot second. You are the winner. Yeah, I'm familiar.
Okay, yeah, as long as you're familiar.
Yeah, I've seen it
that's what
happen in
Instagram-
person.
That's what Instagram has done to me with this ad, and this is not sponsored, but they delivered to me canned chocolate milk. Okay,
Okay.
like I'm drinking out of what you would think is like a Red Bull or a White Claw can, aluminum can or aluminium can, for those of you in the UK. But it is in fact filled with chocolate milk. And even further, so like that was the first arrow, right? That was the whoa. How did they get me so hard? But the second arrow is that they also have espresso chocolate milk. So right now I'm drinking chocolate milk that I guess is either mixed or infused with espresso. And I'm feeling pretty good, Steven. It's pretty great.
That's good. I'm drinking a Mountain Dew because I have nothing else. We need to go to the grocery
That's
store.
okay.
That's what needs
You
to
need to get you some Diet Dr. Pepper Cream Soda Zero.
Yes, we do.
and keep rolling. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if I said what we were going to talk about today, but we got a great show for you. We're going to talk about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the last episode, and probably discuss the whole season in general. We're also going to be talking about Invincible, which just had its final episode this past week. So we're going
Of
to
the
talk all
season.
about that. Of the season, yeah. Renewed for 2 more seasons. Very exciting. We're going to talk about Returnal, which, is, of course, if you're watching live, is what Steven is playing right now. And then I might talk a little bit about Yasuke, which is the new Black Samurai anime that's on Netflix right now. I only watched a brief part of episode 1, but I tell you, it's pretty good. And Steven, you're going to love it. So
Right.
we'll get into that here in a bit. But tell you what, let's just jump off there with Yasuke, Steven, because I don't have a ton to
Yasuke.
say. Is that how you say it?
No, you were correct.
Okay.
I was quoting.
Let's start there.
Yeah, never mind. Just,
I don't have a ton to say about it.
Okay.
'Cause I only had the energy to watch a little bit of it last night. I've been very excited about it because as you know, I'm a big I love samurai culture. We saw, Ghost of Tsushima was like a game made for me. I loved it. And so I don't know if Yasuke is the name of the actual historical person who was like the the Black Samurai. But anyway, this is the show based on this historical figure who was an African American samurai in Japan.
Wait, I thought
As I
Afro Samurai was the retelling. I need to stop.
I was like, what? I don't know. I'm just telling you what I know, Steven. I'm just
Okay.
giving you
Yeah,
the
yeah,
facts that
yeah,
I got.
yeah.
And I may be wrong. Please let me know. But anyway, as I understand it, he was a slave that was brought to, the historical figure was a slave that was brought into Japan, but then kind of like earned the respect of his master, and then he was eventually trained as a samurai, and kind of became a legend. So anyway,
He's kind of a
all
legend.
that to say,
I guess you could say
kind of a
he's
big deal.
kind of a legend.
You could kind of say he's even a. No, I was gonna tie that to Ghost of Tsushima somehow, but it didn't work. I was gonna say he's a ghost, but that doesn't make sense. Anyway, so this anime is loosely based off that. Really,
Right.
it's just the idea of like of what I just said of an African American guy coming to Japan, becoming. I assume he's gonna become a
I
slave
had
to
never even heard that
master
that was a
or lord.
legend, so that's very interesting to me already.
It's a really cool story. I don't know a ton about it, but like just the brief that I've heard, it's awesome. So anyway, I've been very excited about this. So I watched just like the first 5 minutes last night, and it starts with what I am assuming is a flash forward. I assume that they're showing you like really late in probably what's going to end up being the finale. They showed you just a snippet, and it's this huge fight that's happening. You got samurai warriors on both sides. They're duking it out. They're fighting. It's going crazy. Out of nowhere, these like looks like lasers. Lasers start zapping down. What I come to find out later, it's actually arrows that have been infused with magic. Okay, so the bad guys, or I assume the bad guys, they have these sorcerers and they make like this huge like sigil in the sky, and all their archers shoot through the sigil, and their arrows like become infused with dark energy.
Based on a true story, loosely.
I said inspired. I said inspired. It shoots through those and it becomes like infused with dark energy, and it like goes and attacks all the other samurai on the good side, and they're like ducking, and like they have magicians who like make a shield right around them, and then like their leader samurai, he picks up one of the arrows, and then like all this magic comes from his arm, and all the arrows like start to float that had just hit them, and then he shoots them all back, and it does all this stuff. And so I'm
Hits him with
already
the
like,
old Uno reverse card, samurai style.
samurai magic style. So I'm already like, holy moly,
That sounds awesome.
We've got the right setting, right? Samurai, feudal Japan. You've checked me off. The setting and the timeline was perfect already. Now you're throwing magic at me. This is amazing. And then, now this is the hook for you, Stephen. I've set the line. I'm fishing. I'm tugging.
Reel her in, Jake.
I've been baiting you. I'm fixing to set the hook right here. Okay, are you ready for this, Steven?
Yep.
Next thing you know, a giant mech starts to attack,
Based on a true story.
and it's these looks like samurai. Just imagine if in feudal Japan someone had figured out how to make a mech. Okay, but like I'm talking.
So lots
like,
of bamboo.
No, it's all metal. It's all metal, but they look like samurai armor. It's all like metal with samurai armor. Steven, this is the first 5 minutes, by the way. I'm just letting you know. They're hitting you with all this real hard, real fast. So anyway, it's not huge. It's like taller than probably 3 men standing on each other's shoulders or something. I don't know. But like it's not huge. So I'm like, okay, I can suspend some disbelief here. We're seeing magic. Now there's mechs. Like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Next thing you know, there's a giant mech, like one that is not Ultron.
Like a Gundam or
Yes,
or
like a Gundam.
Pacific Rim.
There's a freaking samurai Gundam that pops up, and I think that's actually where the blue arrows. Like, I think he sends that. All those projectiles take out that big mech. Anyway, we've got Pacific Rim coming in here. We've got magic happening over here, and it's samurai. And I was just like, we haven't even met the main character yet, and they have checked off all the boxes. I don't know what to tell you, so I am very, very excited to see where the rest of the story goes. And the art style is beautiful. It is a good looking anime. I am excited. I'm very excited to continue with it. But that's just my little sprinkle of Yasuke. So you need to check it out, Steven. You need to check it out.
That's not what I expected any of this conversation about this anime to be.
It's not what I was expecting from the anime.
I was
thought it was going to
expecting
be a very grounded story,
right.
but no, it's going to be off the walls.
I was expecting you to like try to sell me another anime, but since I'd never heard of it, I was expecting like a Demon Slayer level selling where you're just like, there's a man named Yasuke and he makes bread, and he has a really good sense of hearing, but the action's great.
What about when we were watching Mortal Kombat and I tried to sell you on it because I was like, hey, that happened in the Demon Slayer movie,
Yeah,
and it was just
and then
like
you
a bucket.
forgot that you told me, and then you immediately, as soon as you saw the bucket, the next frame that the bucket was in, you were just like, "Hey, hey, hey, the bucket."
Real talk, Steven. You need to watch. I don't want to derail.
It's
here,
on my list.
but
It's on my
you've
list.
Got to watch Demon Slayer.
I'm
I'm ready
gonna
to
watch
watch. I'm ready to do a rewatch, Steven. I will rewatch it with you, because I want to watch the dub. Because I watched it subbed. Because I heard Brody told me such good things about it that I was like, I don't got time to wait for a dub to come out. I'm just gonna have to watch subbed, and it's great.
I will watch it with you.
We'll do it. We'll do it. Maybe that can be the next live reaction.
gosh.
We just watch all that. So that would be a long time because I think the first season had a reasonable amount of episodes. Like I want to say it's like 20 or so episodes in the first season. I don't know. It's very good. This is one of the rare animes that like, and someone correct me if I'm wrong here because I'm pretty sure Brody told me this, and not that I don't believe or trust Brody, but he told me this about Attack on Titan, and then it wasn't true. Attack on our Demon Slayer's manga has actually ended. Like they've finished the story. So I think it's going to be one that like maybe we'll get like a couple seasons of, but I don't know. Because also the Demon Slayer movie that Brody and I went to see, which I don't know if we've talked about that yet or not, but it was so freaking good. That, as I understand it, is like a whole. That movie should have been season 2 of the anime.
Right.
Is kind of what my understanding of it. So like it pushed us through a whole arc of the manga. So like really when we come back to season 2, it really should be like season 3. But
So it took the M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender approach to cramming an entire season in one film.
No, it did not do that at all. And how dare you? Dare you bring?
Don't invoke his name.
That? No, that's a horrible. No, they took new information and condensed it into a movie instead. I don't even know that they condensed it. I think they just took like it probably would have been like a 10 episode season, and they made it a movie. You know, I don't know. Anyway. It's very good. Highly recommend it. Cool. The art style in Demon Slayer is amazing.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Again, samurais and mystical madness. So
and good senses of smell.
Really good senses of smell.
And
that's
buckets.
A huge thing. That's a huge thing.
Buckets of
There are buckets.
smells.
There are swords. They throw swords every now and then. So lots of things happening. But anyway.
It's on my list.
Steven,
My sisters are trying to get me to watch it, so it'll happen soon.
Steven, what do you want to talk about next? Do you want to talk about Returnal? That's what you've been playing, and then we can push into talking about these shows that like we're gonna probably
Talking
spoilers a little bit
Returnal
of.
right now is probably the better idea because
Gives you a little bit more room on the front end if you need to duck out for spoilers.
And I'm still in the first area. Also, I've got like no spoilers really because I still don't know what the hell's going on. There's a house. I'm in space. I have Karen hairstyle. That's you're caught up. But it'll help me to talk about it now so that when it gets a little more intense, I don't have to talk and formulate thought and such
Mm-hmm.
while fighting for my life.
I understand that. So You may be better suited to explain what Returnal is, Steven, but I'll just to help you because I see you're in the middle of a fight right now.
Am I?
Returnal is. I can't tell. I can't tell that I'm in the middle of a fight. Returnal is. It was a game that was first showed off at one of the state of plays early on, before we even had the PS5. And this was a game that I'm pretty sure is one of the first that was like made from the ground up for PS5. But the general idea is it is a roguelite. The whole gameplay loop where you are, it's a procedurally generated world. You're going through, you're dying, but you're still like you're replaying the same like level over and over with like minor changes here and there, or sometimes major
It's
changes.
basically re-rolled. Like
Yeah,
there are certain
re-roll.
things that are always there, like the house, but it's got different layouts and stuff.
It's like Hades. It's like Hades. A great
Basically,
comparison would be if it was like Hades and Control mixed with what is the game? It's not Death Stranding, but that's what's coming to my head. It's the
boo.
space game,
Dead
Dead
Space.
Space. Is
Dead
that right?
Space.
There we go.
A little bit of
Um,
Dead Space.
It's got a little bit of Dead Space, a lot of Control, a lot of Hades in the roguelike element. But the thing when we first saw it and they kind of explained that concept to us, my immediate thought was like, this is a triple A, or at the very least a double A, roguelite. Um, how is this not just like the thing Steven needs? And Steven was not, you weren't hyped on it for the first little bit. But everyone has been talking about it and everyone has been real excited about it. Brody was real excited about wanting to try it and wanting to get it. I think he was drawn to the kind of the horror elements of it.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what his draw was. But Steven eventually decided to get it. And I think I'm probably going to pick it up at some point. I'm just trying to decide if it's worth me picking up now when I don't have a ton of time to play. But I also don't have anything that I want to play right now. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I'm waiting for things to happen. So anyway, I tried to talk you out of that fight. It looks like you're out of there, Steven. So what are your thoughts on it now that you've had some time with it?
So people are gonna tell you that Returnal
What are they going
is
to tell me?
they're gonna tell you Returnal is a roguelike or roguelite first. Those people are liars. Don't believe a word they ever say ever again. Because
Okay, so I'm a liar.
yes,
Just lock
Jake
me
Jake
up
is a
and throw away
liar.
the key.
First of all, let me tell you about this game
Put me
Returnal.
in the
Jake's a
mud, the
liar.
wet mud.
It is a roguelike. Even more so than roguelite, I would say it's a roguelike because the only things that you carry with you as you progress are the tools that you find, like the grappling hook and so on, and the some ether, which is a resource that you can have a limited amount of that you can use to help yourself in runs. Whereas the typical roguelite, you have progression. Think Hades, the purple crystals, being able to improve your stats and stuff. This game doesn't have that, it would seem. And I'm very early on. I've almost beaten the third biome. Crap. And sorry. But this game
almost crap and beat
not a roguelike slash light first. It is a bullet hell first. Which most
That is true. It has a lot of bullet hell
Yes.
elements in it.
most bullet hells that both are correct where a rogue like Enter the Gungeon is the one that I would say is like the when you think of roguelike and bullet hell, you go to Enter the Gungeon, which is a fair comparison because that's it's both. But this one, and maybe it's because I play more roguelites than I do roguelikes because I enjoy that progression game. I love the crawl towards being able to start off weak and then slowly learning and getting better skills and stuff. I like that gameplay loop. So maybe that's what's throwing me off. But this game doesn't seem to, and I like it. I like it a lot. So this sounds like I'm gearing up for criticism. I'm not. I'm just saying the one thing that I would say is a criticism. But this game doesn't seem to think that it's as much of a bullet hell as it is by design.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing you'll notice about most bullet hells, they are top down.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that's not all of them, and I don't play a ton of bullet hells, so I could be completely wrong in my analysis of the genre. Please don't hate me for it.
I mean, I don't know if you ever watched any of our early Let's Plays, Steven, but Brody, one of the very first games Brody and I ever played was a game called
Hyperlight?
Fury.
No, it was Fury. That's right. I was thinking Hyperlight Drifter.
Um,
Do they
yeah,
look similar?
we always wanted to do that one. We never did.
Okay.
I've always wanted to play that one. It's always just sat. I've never started it. Want to really bad. Anyway, sorry, getting derailed. That one was a third person hack and slash, really, but
Yeah.
it was also kind of a bullet hell in
It
the
had
sense that
it did shift
all the enemies
to top
had
down though,
patterns
didn't it?
and were shooting you some stuff. You know, now that you mention it, when you got into a fight where it was very bullet hell heavy, it did
Yeah,
change
because
your
I vaguely
perspective,
remember
but I
that.
forgot. Yeah, you're right. So I'm an idiot. Just bury me in the wet mud. Keep going. Keep talking about this.
So most bullet hells, from my experience, are top down because the whole thing is you need to be able to see what's in front of you, behind you, to the left, the right, all that kind of stuff, so that you can navigate through it. And it adds to that sense of craziness and chaos when you're surrounded and you're having to use mobility as basically your most important weapon. But this game's third person, except for when it's first person, but we'll get to that. And it suffers as a bullet hell from that because I don't know if you can see this, but oh god, I've got a lot of stuff happening on my screen right now where I've got the enemies that I have to see where they are. I've got to see where they are on the radar if they're not in my line of sight. I've got the ammo depleting from my gun, and then if it depletes while I'm shooting it, I have to do an active reload to overload. I don't know if I mentioned the minimap already, but there's the minimap if I need to see enemies that aren't, I think I did, that aren't in my line of sight. And then, oh, my stick's not working. There we go. And then there's like cooldowns that appear on the bottom left of the screen. It's a very busy screen, but it's third person. So your gaze is being sent all across the screen when you still are expected to always look straight in front of you. And it's rough. And I don't know if they're just like, yep, it's tough, get over it, or if they realize that it's as much of a challenge as it is. But add all of that with the fact that when you kill an enemy, they drop very valuable resource that you need for your runs to like buy upgrades for your suit or weapons or whatever. They last on the field for maybe like 5 seconds.
Oh gosh.
So you have to be aggressive while balancing all of your defense and dodging because the projectiles have all these crazy patterns too. They move deceptively quick sometimes. It's just a lot. And I do think that this game could have used some more ease of use things if it insisted on being a bullet hell. But all that being said, like my only complaint about it is that it could have been made easier to play, which a lot of people would just be like, hey, knock knock, who's there, get good. But I'm saying that I guess more so as commentary than criticism, because I don't really hold it against the game.
Well, it's interesting because I have heard a lot of people say that the game is hard, but what I haven't heard, no one has articulated it like you have. Because I've heard, oh, it's hard. Okay, yeah, it's hard. Cool. Like, what does that really mean? I just assumed it was just the game is challenging, but what you're saying is like, no, what's challenging is they made a bullet hell that you play like a roguelite or whatever.
They made and it is challenging, but it has there's that earned challenge, I guess, and then there's like that artificial difficulty where it's like you feel like the game is challenging, but just because it's being a dick to you.
Yeah, and that's rough.
Oh crap! I'm gonna die. Go ahead.
The critique that I have heard from a lot of people is how long the runs go.
Yes.
And again, I haven't played it, so I don't know, but I've seen on Twitter people saying like, "Oh yeah, I've had runs that are like 2 or 3 hours, and I'm not even done."
And there's
And
no
there's no way to
saves.
save. Yeah, there's no way to save. There's no way to. I mean, I assume you can finish a biome, and then when there's no enemies around, go into rest mode.
Nope.
And that's like the only
Oh well,
saving grace
going
you
into like
have.
actually sending your, yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
And this game isn't a constant barrage of enemies like your typical roguelite or bullet hell. Even like there's surprisingly a lot of, I don't know if I want to say puzzle solving, but it makes a lot effective use of its traversal and its exploration, at which basically all that to be said, it's got a good bit of Metroidvania in it as well.
Right.
Because once I unlocked the grappling hook, I was able to use the grappling hook points that I had always seen back in the first biome.
Yeah.
So if I was still in that run when if I didn't die in my run after getting the grappling hook, I could be like, well, I think I could do this. I actually haven't tried this, but I would assume that I could go back to the first biome and get all of the tools and stuff that I didn't get because I didn't have the grappling hook yet. So there is a lot of that.
As I understand it, that is right. Because I heard some folks talking about how that's kind of the puzzle of it is how much stronger do I need to be to take on the boss? But is it worth taking on everything just to get to the next area? Like how long do I need to prepare for?
Right.
So yeah, that's very exciting.
And that is a very rogue thing that it does effectively is the question of, is what's going to be behind this door worth what I'm going to get? And the game, it can do some of those things where it screws you over. Like I was in the third biome and it showed me a new weapon and it was a rocket launcher. And I foolishly was like, okay, so I picked this up so that I can have it in my, pool for later so it can drop later on. And I assume the game is going to be giving this to me because I'll need it, which I should know better than to think that in a game like this. Turns out it was saying, screw you, that's the worst possible weapon to use for what you're about to do. Because there are these drones that fire projectiles that move so freaking fast, they spam you, they can dodge in midair. So I lost 5 healing consumables, 2 death defies, and most of my health in one room.
Dang. Ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy, but that is a very rogue element of risk versus reward, and I'm the kind of person who, like in Wizard of Legend, for example, I refuse to move to the next floor without getting that 100% on screen. That's like, hey, you've cleared the entire. No, I have to do all of it because I'm tryhard when it comes to that game, I guess. But in this game, it does feel less of like, it does a really good job of making you feel like you're just lost in an endless chasm of an alien planet. And I've seen the patterns of like, I've seen like, yeah, I know what this room is. I've been here before, all that stuff, but it hasn't been a problem. Like I haven't, I've always been on edge as I should be. And I've always had to beg the question to myself of like, I've seen this before, but behind this room, last time maybe in this room I got a really good artifact. Maybe this time I'll get screwed. It does a good job with its rogue elements, but just the way it plays, like in the moment, gun in your hand, all that stuff, it's a bullet hell. And I don't think people are giving that the proper acknowledgement.
Proper notification of that.
Because like if you were told like, oh yeah, it's like Hades or something like that, and you picked it up, you'd be in for a rude awakening if no one prepared you with the comparisons to other bullet hells. And it's, and maybe I do suck, but it is difficult playing a third person bullet hell like this. But that being said, it's fantastic. Like, I was worried about this game, and one of the reasons I didn't pick it up, or I didn't like get super hyped on it, was because it gave me Control vibes, but the things I didn't like about Control, to where you take this average everyday person, and before you guys are at me like, no, trailer number 3, it's 2 minutes and 54 seconds. This happens. I only watched the reveal trailer. And so I'm fully saying this was because of my lack of information. But the first trailer I saw gave me the vibe that Celine, this character, was going to be kind of like a wide-eyed, bushy-tailed Jesse Faden. And I could not stand Jesse Faden in Control. And this game seemed like it was going to focus a lot on the character. And it was just like, man, I don't know if I want to deal with that, because I can't play Control because of Jesse. I beat it finally, but I couldn't do any more. But I was wrong.
Right.
And I'm so glad that I was wrong, because only a few minutes with Celine, and it's just like, I totally get what they're going for with this character, and they're nailing it. Because, and there are a lot of Control vibes, but I'll get to that. But with Celine, just using her as an example, using her as a comparison to Jesse, just real quick, Austin did say, he mentioned the Discord and PlayStation partnership. Are we going to discuss that today?
I was gonna let you finish this, and then I was gonna get into it. So
Okay,
yeah, you
cool.
can.
All right, we will talk about that in a second. So with Jessie, it was very much like she talked to herself a ton. She didn't make sense because she just kind of was a badass, but she had no idea what was going on, except when she seemed like she knew what was going on. She was just very inconsistent. But right from the gate, Celine has that narrative voice to where she talks to herself a lot, but it's through audio logs, and it's through a way where you see this camera on my shoulder. That is a camera that is constantly reporting her findings to her place of work, Astra. So she literally is like contractually obligated to report all of her findings. So her narrative voice makes sense. It fits in universe. And she talks in a way to where she has a consistent voice, to where she is obviously a very capable or whatever astronaut, scientist, whatever she is. I don't really know her story yet, but she talks.
Astronaut, scientist,
astronaut, scientist, ninja, vampire. But her narrative voice makes sense because of context, I guess. And so when she talks, it's interesting, because she has stuff to add that is just like, oh yeah, she would perceive things this way. And so I appreciate that a lot. And also, you find audio logs scattered around, a lot of which, if not all, are on top of her own body from a previous run where she was killed. Which raises a lot of questions.
Crazy.
Yeah, it raises a lot of questions like, wait, this isn't time travel. Or at least it doesn't appear to be, because the world, even though it changes, you take things back with you. It's not a Groundhog Day situation where you're reliving the same events. It is something else, to where it's almost like cloning. Because it's like a new version of Celine has appeared and is attempting to do to run the gauntlet again, but she can find a previous version of herself and see where she failed, and hear an audio log that she left talking about what she was facing. So her only company is not only herself and her findings on the camera, but ghosts of her former self. It's very cool. It's super clever. A great way to have your character do dialogue. It's kind of like with Will Smith in I Am Legend, where his means of speaking was to the mannequins because he was so starved for interaction, or with his dog. Those made sense, but it got you to be able to learn who he was as a person through dialogue, even though there was no one with him. That's kind of how this feels, where she's talking because not only she has to, but also, like, she's kind of, or the other side of her conversation is herself. It's trippy. The aesthetic, I spent a lot of time on that. I won't spend as much time on this probably. The aesthetic, just using the Control comparisons again, feels so Remedy. It's like if Remedy did a straight up space sci-fi. Because you've got these high sci-fi elements to where we're clearly somewhere in the future, where space travel is just a thing, that you do. And we are on this alien planet, and again, I'm not very far in with the story, so I don't know why I'm here or whatever, but it trickles in what appear to be like I don't know if I can say, I guess, paranormal kind of stuff. There is an astronaut that is basically constantly following you in your dreams or something. And when you go to that house that I passed earlier, for example, you go first person. You see through Celine's eyes.
It becomes very PT-like.
It looks just like PT. Which, even when you walk in the house, it's just like, oh, wow, this is just straight up the PT house. It was crazy. But I guess this is nothing. Okay. But those sequences feel super Remedy because they feel supernatural. That's the word I was looking for, not paranormal. They feel very supernatural to where it feels like this house has been recreated like in her mind or something, or it's a nightmare, or there's just something going on, and you learn more about her character through these scenes, and they are straight up horror. Like they do such a good job with the sound design and everything, and just making the house creepy as hell to explore. Like at one point I was in, I think, a bedroom or a den. It was one of the two. But there was a TV, and the TV was staticky, and I sat down at the couch to look at it. And when I sat down at the couch, the astronaut was on the screen, standing in what I knew, because I had explored it in a previous scene of the house, was the hallway right outside my door. And he's just standing there. And so it was like, well, I have to go out there and see what he wants. So it is doing its intrigue so well, and it's very impressive, because one thing I will say about rogues is that typically you don't get a good story. And it's not because it's like they tried and failed, it's just because
Hades was kind of a rare exception.
Hades and Children of Morta.
Children of Morta was
but it's games that like make a point of saying like story is a priority for us. But it's usually in such a way to where Hades did it in a really clever way, to where it was the different times trying to get out of the underworld. So it made sense to have to repeat the actions and whatnot. Children of Morta had to be a little bit more hand wavy, but it was okay because it was very engaging. This game, like if you saw the scenes in the house or just some of the scattered story bits, you would have no idea it's a roguelite.
Right.
Or roguelike. And so it's very interesting to see a game balance the two so well in such different ways. Because I'm very interested in what's going on. Now, the narrative, I can't say is great because, as far as like, am I getting a good story right now in a traditional sense? No. Because I don't know what the hell's going on. But I'm getting, in a sense, a great narrative experience, because even though the story is not being told to me in a traditional way to where I can be like, oh, I like this character, I like this moment in her art.
Right.
But it is a narrative experience to where there's a story here, but I have to experience it or decode it, or that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's very Remedy, I think.
It is. It totally is. Mixing supernatural and sci-fi and all that kind of stuff. It feels very Remedy. And I think the first thing I said within like 15 minutes of playing this game, I texted you guys and I was like, man, I'm just wondering what kind of masterpiece Remedy and Housemarque, or Housemarque, however you pronounce it.
Yeah, Housemarque, yeah.
However, like what kind of masterpiece they could come up with.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That would be an amazing partnership.
Because even just World alone, and just how I do feel like I'm on an alien planet that has its own history, and how like there are coded text that I can find in alien language that when I try to read them, I don't know the alien language, but I can find various pieces of the cipher to where I can eventually decode these alien messages. Like just that's one of the many things. It's just, it's very impressive, and it's nice to see a game like this that's, I can't say that it's, breaking boundaries of what a game can be, but it's definitely saying like, hey, roguelikes can be AAA. That's pretty much how it feels.
That's the huge thing, absolutely. Because normally you think of roguelite and you think of like indie games. I mean,
Right.
like we've talked about Hades, that's an indie game. Children of Morta. There's some other Wizard of Legend that you mentioned. It is usually synonymous with indie game. It's just a great, easy, or I don't know about easy, but it's a classic indie game to make. Is like, or a classic indie game genre. But this is like, what if we took that genre and elevated it to something AAA? Absolutely, that's what you're getting.
And it definitely feels that way, and it's cool getting to see a game that was like, hey, we've got these adaptive triggers and this haptic feedback. Let's actually do something with it.
That was my next thing. We've gone probably too long on Returnal, but I do have to ask, how is the adaptive trigger?
So the haptic feedback is pretty cool. Like in the cutscene when Celine's ship is going down, and I'm waiting outside this door because there's some kind of awful monster waiting for me on the other side. So I want to get this thought out before we shift topic. But in the scene where Celine's ship is crashing, the haptic feedback makes you feel like almost you're holding the wheel, to where you can feel like her left engine go out and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. There's not as much of that in the actual game, it seems, but it's kind of hard to be like, oh yeah, it does exactly this, because I was totally thinking about that at this moment when this big thing happened. It's like, no, this is a rogue. Like, you don't remember what your controller was doing in these moments because you are sweating and just trying to not die and lose your 2 hours of progress. But the adaptive triggers are the big thing of note, where the left trigger has the halfway resistant point, to where to aim, like I'm doing right now, you half press it, but then when you apply all your pressure, you switch to your alt fire.
Interesting.
Which was a very clever way to do that, because normally that's something that would require at least
a whole nother button.
Yeah. And in this game, it takes some getting used to, but it does it so well to where I've only a few times switched to alt fire when I've been meaning to aim. So it's a very good game. I don't know if I can say it's worth $70 because I don't know how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Right.
But
and it's funny. I think it depends. There's got to be something grabbing you out of it,
Yeah.
If you like the horror, I think there's probably going to be some horror elements in there that'll be worth it for you. If you like Remedy's world building, then this might be interesting for you. If you like roguelites, I don't know how this isn't calling your name already. I don't know why I'm getting it, but I just downloaded it. So
of course you did.
we'll see how it goes. But anyway, yeah, that is the thing, and it is one of those things, people always have this conversation. This is a conversation we'll have over and over about titles as we go into the next generation. But yeah, it is. I can't say, obviously I haven't played it, but it's hard for me to say, oh well, that's there's no way that's worth $70 or whatever. I think it's because traditionally, like we just said, normally a roguelite, you think of an indie game, and not that indie games don't deserve to be paid, but normally it's a smaller experience.
Yeah, your typical roguelike or roguelite is going to cost you at most $30.
Right.
Which is why it's just kind of like, and it has me kind of excited, but also kind of nervous of how deep this game is. Because yes, it's high quality. Just looking at it, it's beautiful.
Oh yeah, I mean absolutely, it's beautiful. The adaptive trigger stuff probably even is a huge element to why it costs as much as it does.
But like if I am to say like, I'm posing the question to myself, I guess, should I be expecting a rogue title that's twice as big as other rogues that I've played in terms of content? and I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how much content there is in this game. Typically, rogues don't have the most content in terms of level, but because
Right.
of like the variety and different powers or gear or whatever, it's super replayable because everything is procedural and whatnot. So I'm just curious how many biomes there are, how much story, all that kind of stuff. And I'm hell bent on not finding out without my own doing. Like I don't want to look
Right.
anything up for this game because I am loving the experience. And like moments where I've walked past what appeared to be vines and it turned out being living alien fauna that tried to grab me and choke me. Yeah,
Nice.
fantastic moment. And I love having those moments. And this is the perfect kind of game where that can happen.
I think in the sense of like, how much content am I getting out of this? I feel like for this, you're paying for the quality,
Right.
not the
I
content.
would assume that's probably what they're doing as well.
Yeah. So, but anyway, that's again, that's from person to person. Everyone will feel differently about that.
Yeah.
Someone who, you know, again loves roguelites,
Yeah.
loves horror, loves bullet hells, all that. This may be the perfect game for you, right? It might become your
Right.
game of the year, and you'll say it was absolutely worth the 70. Whereas somebody like me, the only reason I want to play this is just because everyone's talking about it. Everyone's playing it and enjoying it.
Right.
So I just want to try it out.
It's kind of
I may
funny.
come back and say, "Man, I should have waited."
Yeah.
But we'll see.
It's kind of funny how two of the first PS5 exclusives have been two games that have a terrible point of entry, like that are terrible as a point of entry, being like the Demon Souls remaster and now this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's very interesting on their part to choose that, but hey, if it gets us more projects of this kind of quality or of this kind of genre, I say go for it. It just seems like a risky move, but I hope it pays off for them.
See, and I love it. That's one of the things I like, and I hope PlayStation continues to do. And I'm scared that they seem to keep making decisions that is pushing them away from making riskier decisions and like taking a chance on a game like this.
Yes.
But these are the things that I love when gems like this come out. And it's like, wow, why would they have risked this? But it ends up being great.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know if that's true for you, Steven, yet, if this is going to be a gem that you talk about, but I just mean in general, people have been loving this one. So I
Yeah.
think this is
I love when Sony is kind of like you were saying, willing to just be like, hey, studio who is not a in-house Sony name, like your non Nathan Drakes, your non Last of Us, they're willing to just be like, hey, show them what you got.
well, and that's what I hope they continue to be that way.
Agreed.
So, all right, we've talked a long while about Returnal, but it was worth it. It was a great conversation. I do want to. So Austin brought up a minute ago. This was news that came out today. Discord and PlayStation have come to a partnership. Steven, I haven't read any headlines about this or anything like that, so I don't know the details of what's going on. But what
Is
are
there
your first thoughts when you hear that?
That's very good on their part. Because Discord, it's been my perception, I think since about early 2020, that Discord is only getting bigger, and by that I mean it's moving beyond just the gaming space.
They started a TikTok today, Steven. So I mean, I don't know
Interesting.
what more you want. You know what I mean?
TikTok to go away. That's what I want.
Oh, that's a longer conversation. I'm not even going to start right now. But keep
Cool.
keep going.
But that's potentially really good foresight on Sony's part for them to see that like this is more than just Skype for nerds. It's possibly the future of gaming communities, or it could even be the now,
Well,
depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, I mean it's just funny because we've had with Nintendo is a great example, right? Nintendo's party system is just non-existent. It's not the best thing ever. So people have always resorted to Discord. But even beyond that, I mean, there have been several times where I know you and Brody have been playing different games or games that you don't play together, but you'll just jump in a Discord call because that's easier.
Right.
And even on the PC scene, I know people that's what they're using for their parties and communications and stuff.
And
So
that's and all that's just from a realm of like communication in like
in general,
voice
yeah.
chat. Like Discord is only going to get bigger and more crucial in terms of community, because before it would have been website and then maybe like Facebook, Twitter, all that kind of stuff to get your updates. But if you look at any project now, it's like join our Discord for more information, and that's only going to get bigger, I think.
Right.
And so I think that that's not going to even be limited. I think to say that it's the future of gaming, communication, all that kind of stuff was probably wrong. Well, because it's the now. But I think that,
Right.
that
The future is if it can eventually because so I looked briefly at the headline.
Yeah.
And so what happened is Sony bought a minority share or interest, I think is what it was called, in Discord. And I didn't realize this, but Microsoft has apparently been in talks to buy them out. So I don't know if that was Sony saying like, hold on, like we don't, we're not losing this. So it would be really interesting to see if Discord became a system for like cross-play party. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if there was some sort of integration within the system for Discord.
I mean, that's something that
would
is
be a really
very
cool,
much
that
needed.
That would be the evolution.
Yeah.
So.
I would love to see some kind of integration between Facebook. I don't even know why I said Facebook. Between Discord and PlayStation. I think it's potentially really good news. I just hope that it's not them being like, hey, we're going to lick this bagel so that you don't eat this bagel. Like them being like, hey, we're going to, throw money at it just so that our competitors don't have it.
Right. Yeah. We'll see. I would think that it's one of those things that they're hopefully thinking about and seeing how people are using it now and wanting to do more with it in the future. But
Right.
We'll see how that goes. Okay, Steven, we've had some great conversations, but we still have 2 TV show finales that we want to talk about and in turn probably discuss the seasons. Let's start with The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Good.
Main reason being, I know it's fresh on your mind, but also we're a week behind actual premiere. So if you're watching live or listening, maybe this is one that you can listen to right now. So that'll give you a little bit longer to hang out with us. But obviously, we'll talk full spoilers here for Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
For those of you that want to, if they did watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, and don't want to spoil it for other people, let us know in the chat what you thought of it, and we may address some of that.
Yeah, drop your thoughts in there of the finale and the season as a whole. So, sometimes, Stephen, we do a beat for beat of like what happened in the episode. I frankly don't remember because I watched it when it premiered.
It moved very fast. Would you like me to do a rundown?
Yeah, if you want to do a rundown and we can just talk bit for bit.
Okay.
From there, if you watched it last night, right?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay, great. So yeah.
So
It was a weird last episode, just to start off top level.
It very much had a WandaVision vibe to it, where it was just like, wait, we only have one more episode? Okay. Let's do everything right now.
And I feel the same way about Invincible, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but it felt like there was a great momentum in the episode before. And so when this one hit, maybe I am mixing things up with Invincible, but when this one hit, it was like, why did we have to wait another week? Like, why? Like, couldn't we have just had a 2-hour finale? That would have. I felt like that would have kept the momentum better.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry. Go through the episode. For me.
So basically, the court hearing, whatever it was, where they were voting on where to relocate the refugees, I missed a lot of the nitty gritty. So there's going to be a lot where it's just like, yeah, the
Basically,
thing where the people.
It's the vote that Carly and her team have been fighting against this whole time with the relocation government deal, whatever.
Yes.
I forget the name, the GCPD or whatever.
Yeah. So that whole thing is going down, and they have the worst security ever because apparently all of the flag smashers are just their security detail. Like they're just in there and
Right.
no one bats an eye.
No one flagged that.
No one flagged that. If they did, they would have smashed it. Huh. But okay, pause for laugh.
That was good. That
thanks.
was really good.
Yeah. And so Falcon shows up to stop them in his new outfit, which the outfit comic accurate to Falcon's comic outfit. That being said, it still looks goofy.
I didn't think it looked goofy. I thought it looked
like as a superhero costume, it looks good, but just it looks like he's in a muscle suit. Maybe that's the goofy part, to where it just kind of looks disproportionate to him a little bit. But maybe that's the vibranium. I don't know.
Well, I think it's because up until this point, we've always seen him in like a pretty, I don't know if toned down is the word I'm looking for, but like a pretty, he's always been in a pretty simple outfit that didn't have a lot of armor. Usually it's short sleeve. Usually the big highlight for him is his wings, which is, as the Falcon, was kind of his big thing. But I feel like now that he's Captain America, that had to change a little bit. So it is weird seeing him in bright colors too, though, because he's always been, which I guess red is kind of a bright color, but it's always been like a very muted red.
Maybe that's the thing. Maybe one of the colors just makes it to where it looks weirder than it does to me. I don't know. Something about it just rubs me.
You know what it is now that you're saying that? It's probably because it's majority white.
Yeah.
And whereas I think Steve Rogers was mostly blue with like white accents, whereas I feel like his is white with blue and red accents.
Yes.
So maybe that's what it is. But anyway, it's just a very bright suit. But I liked it.
Yeah.
I didn't love. So he comes in to save the day, right? He busts through the window. Great opening shot because he's in the air. He does this cool like wings flapping thing, and he throws the shield. Great moment, great shot. But then he busts in. He flies in. He kicks some dude. He kicks a flag smasher, and then a guard's like, "Who are you?" And he goes, "I'm Captain America." And I really hated that because we've talked about John Walker and comparison. People have been comparing John Walker and Steve Rogers this all season long, and just talking about, you know, Cap, or it's saying that Steve never introduces himself as Cap, but John Walker, that's always the first thing he says. "I'm John Walker, Captain America," whereas Steve is always just like, "I'm Steve Rogers. I'm Steve Rogers." Everyone else calls him Cap. Yeah. And so I understand that, like, yeah, no one knows that Sam's been made Captain America, but like, there's a great moment later where somebody's like, "Yo, that's the Black Falcon," and then another guy's like, "No, that's Captain America." Like, that would have been great if that had been the moment. That would have been awesome. And but the fact that he said it beforehand,
it's one of those things, that feels very much like them saying, like, audience, did you catch that? He said he was Captain America, so he's accepted his identity as Captain America. If it was,
and I got that. I got that. It's just, as somebody who, and this is probably the problem with doing episodes weekly, it gives us way too much time to think and overanalyze every little detail, which sometimes is great, but when it doesn't connect like this, it's like it's a nitpick.
The problem is, and this is like the recurring problem, this is the thing that rubs me the wrong way about the entire show, is that the show assumes that its audience is a bunch of bigots that have the IQ of an 8-year-old. Like, it's so, like, it doesn't let you just kind of get there yourself. It thinks it has to hold your hand, and it's just like, you don't have to treat me like I'm stupid. I get it. And so he shows up, starts to save the day, and then Bucky screws something up again.
Did Bucky screw something up?
Yeah, like he was supposed to like find Carly or whatever. I missed what his actual job was, but then Carly called him on the phone, and he was talking to her, and then he's like,
he was just supposed to follow the hostages, and
that's what it was.
She called him. That kind of distracted him for a minute. And then he still followed the
hostages. But then Sharon was like, "Barnes, you had one job," and it was just like, "Aha, Bucky screwed it up." Like it just was like, you're not even giving Bucky anything to do in this episode. Because after I watched the episode, I texted you guys and I was like, why is Bucky even in this show? And I
Yeah.
know he's had a lot of emotional development. Well, I say a lot of emotional development, but his emotional development's been like quality over quantity, to where we see very important moments for Bucky. But for a guy whose name is half of the title of the show, he's gotten
Right.
maybe an episode of
So
like,
let's just jump off of this right here and
yeah,
have this conversation. This is going to be a season overview part of the, like conversation. This isn't
right.
going to be necessarily episode heavy, but anyway, talking about Bucky there. So I didn't interpret him as like messing it up so much as just like I don't know.
I wouldn't have
could happen
either
to
if
any of the
Sharon
heroes.
hadn't literally said like,
Right.
"Good job, Barnes."
Yeah. Well, what I was gonna say is I completely agree with you. I feel like Bucky kind of got gypped in this whole situation.
Yeah.
And you mentioned some great points, and I agree with you. Of he has had some really important moments for him. Like Civil War ends and he's in Wakanda and he's on ice. Next time we see him, I think it's Infinity War.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Shoot.
just
Oh my
suddenly
God.
he's cured. Suddenly he's cured. He's here. He's good. He's ready for duty, and he runs in and he goes.
Yeah.
We never saw any of that. How did he overcome all this psychological damage? How did all that? And this has been a great show to explore that. And again, I think this is what these shows are about. Is here are some characters who haven't had their own movies, and we don't have time for them to have a movie. We just need to give them some time to breathe so that you can get through some of that. That's what this whole show's been about. But I feel like Bucky got gypped because, like you said, yeah, this is the point of this show. I think should have been Sam becoming Cap and Bucky becoming something other than the Winter Soldier. But instead, it became more about Sam becoming Cap.
Yeah.
And one of the things everyone thought for the longest time that at the end of the show, everyone was like, the title is going to change at the end of the show because there wasn't a season 2 confirmed or anything like that. And we've talked about like why do any of these shows need season 2s? This is really just their movie, whatever. Long conversations we had before, but people were like, oh, the title's going to change, and we've all kind of thought, oh my gosh, it's going to be Captain America and the White Wolf. Like he's going to become the White Wolf at the end of this. And so when that didn't happen, I was kind of just like, man, that's lame. Like I guess they just didn't do that. But it's come out now. The writer of the show has been kind of explaining a lot of things. He's working on the Captain America 4. Is that right? 4, 3, 4? Yeah, 4. He's working on Captain America 4 and everything. And so he mentioned that, yeah, the original plan was for the title to change to Captain America and the White Wolf. But they decided to leave it as is, where it just changes to Captain America and the Winter Soldier to like really make that impact that he's Captain America now, which again is fine. But then, like to your point, why was Bucky in the show? Like, why doesn't Bucky have his own show where we can focus on Bucky?
Well,
so I just feel like he kind of got gypped
and
overall.
it's good stuff on both ends. The problem is this show needed it either needed a couple more episodes or it needed to drop the Flag Smashers completely, which I still think that it needed to just drop the Flag Smashers because that was a cool concept, but they completely dropped the ball.
Yeah.
100%. They needed to make it to where they had their own separate shows because there was room for Sam. Like Sam got the best end of the deal in terms of like where like the development that he got. But in the end, and this is what I'm going to go to next after I finish this point. In the end, it felt more like it was less of him thinking of this is why I should become Captain America and more of like, hey, this is why you need to be okay with him being Captain America, talking to the audience. And oh, that's nice.
Well, and see, I liked what they did with Sam and with his journey to becoming Captain America and him becoming okay with it, because I think his hesitation early on throughout the show we saw that justified. We meet Isaiah Bradley and see the rejection of him, and it's like, okay, all right. So he knew he couldn't be Captain America because of some. He didn't know that this had happened before, but like this was his suspicions being validated, right? That people wouldn't accept it. But then at a certain point, he realizes like it doesn't matter if people are ready to accept it or not. It's what's right. And he does it, and then obviously people do accept it, and it all works great. He has that great speech and everything later on. But I don't know. To your point, I don't know.
So
you and I certainly didn't need the explanation of like
right,
he can be Captain America,
and that's my issue. That is like.
That is your whole problem with the show bundled up in a bow right there.
Pretty much. That's my biggest issue with the show is the fact that I don't feel like they justified properly the whole thing of like the reason Sam ultimately picked up the shield wasn't because he like the takeaway very much felt like it wasn't I need to do this because Steve's legacy needs to be upheld or because the world needs a Captain America. It felt much more like I need to do this for Isaiah, for the black community. And that just feels wrong to the character to where you're just reducing him to his most basic characteristic, which just seems in itself kind of backwards.
Well, and I would disagree with you. I definitely think what you just laid out is part of what he saw and why he decides to stand up and do it. But I do think there were elements that we saw with John of why it is important that Steve picked him. And Steve wanted him to be the one that replaces him. So I do think that element is there. But again, to your point, I don't know. Like you're saying, did the audience really need that much? And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people probably did need that. But again, like we talked about a few podcasts ago, like if the race of it was the issue for you, then you just don't even need to be in the conversation.
Yeah, you're ruining television for everyone. Just stop having an opinion.
That's not even an ideal worth holding on to.
No.
That the race
and there
that
are
any race is better or not, whatever.
Right. There are people out there that unfortunately believe that, and I think a lot of that expectation to have to deal with that attitude comes from when Falcon was made Captain America to begin with. Mm-hmm. A lot of people responded to that very negatively. Mm-hmm. And so I guess they were just like, well, we need to be prepared for everyone to be like, no black Captain America, not my Captain America. His skin's not the same color. And so they made it to where not their entire, but so much of their platform for why the show lands where it is just the wrong argument. Because, and here's my next point, he has that whole speech about like, I'm a black man wearing the Stars and Stripes. This is a big deal or whatever. Like, there are people out there who hate me for it. Out of everyone that they showed, who hated him for it?
I can't bring to mind anyone specifically like booing him in the crowd or anything like that.
No one booed him. People cheered him. The people at home that it showed watching were very much in approval. And so no one, this universe, the MCU, has never given the impression that it's racist. Like that like Steve never gave the impression that he wouldn't give the shield to a black man. The government never gave the impression that they wouldn't let a black man be Captain America. So we're being told all this information while we're being shown the exact opposite when everyone's cheering him on and like he's being thanked for his service in front of and no one tells him like that's not your shield, like, and tries to take it back. Like they stole that shield. And the government is straight up looking at him just being like, thanks, Sam. And that's it.
Yeah.
No one has a single issue with him being there, and yet he's up there talking at us. And I say talking at because it very much his face was literally on TV It was as if I was watching Sam Wilson, Captain America, Falcon, whatever, being like, you should be ashamed of yourself for these feelings you don't have. And that just felt really inconsistent and just wrong and a disservice to the fans and to the world to feel like they have to spend so much time doing that. Because if they had stopped a good bit before that, like if the whole introducing Isaiah thing was the furthest they went with that, I would have been like, okay, yeah, that's fair, because that is completely inconsistent with the world that we've had, but at least it adds something and it's based somewhat on real events, so that's interesting commentary. But
Right.
it just here felt completely out of place, and it just felt like it had commentary taped on its forehead.
Yeah.
And
well, and the other thing that I want to bring in here is obviously we're two white dudes, right?
Of
Talking
course,
about
yeah.
this. I would love to hear a person of color's
I would too.
perspective of this in the context of what we're talking about, because and like we've said, as much as we would like to think that our world that we're existing in right now, not the MCU, but the world in general, as much as we'd like to think, hey, we're making progress, we're pushing past racism every day, I know that people of color would disagree and say, no, I'm dealing with this stuff all the time. So I almost wonder if for them as a fan, and again, this is me guessing, I would like to know, and I would think, and from what I've seen on Facebook and Twitter and everything, and TikTok even, of people analyzing these messages that they've been saying, whereas you and I, Stephen, are saying, this isn't my issue. I don't need you to explain this isn't the justification I need for why he's Captain America. I need to know why the guy who can fly is Captain America when, there's somebody on the ground who could be using the shield.
right.
That's the explanation you and I want. But I think for people who have experienced that racism firsthand, them getting to see someone overcome that and become something greater, I think that probably meant more for them,
Right.
Than it would for us.
And
I do agree. I do completely agree with what you're saying in the sense that when he became Captain America, no one booed, no one walked away.
And
like there wasn't the justification for all of this
right.
that we have been told.
And
I
that's
understand that.
and that's my big issue, because I understand there being an importance there, to show, like, hey, this is what we stand for. We understand that the African American community, this happens to them. They need a hero. They need someone that looks like them. They need to understand that the future or the present, whatever, where we're headed, where we want to be, where we are, whatever you want to say it is a place where a man of color can be the symbol of a nation. But the people that need that message, that need to understand that this is the reality of things, either get on board or shut up. Like the people that need to hear that kind of message, when it's presented in this way, those people aren't going to hear it.
Right.
Those people are going to just, because when you give credence to an argument, like when you spend time arguing against an opposing argument, the person with that opposing belief is not going to be like, wow, I never thought about it that way, because chances are they have thought about it every way, or they've refused to think about it. The only thing that it's going to do is it's going to show them that there are other people out there that agree with them, because the argument needs to be made in such a way to where, like it just feels like when someone sees that, it's just more reason for them to be mad for these ridiculous reasons.
It's like giving attention to
yes,
the bully,
yes,
or something like that.
It's putting fuel on their fire, even though you have good intentions. You're just doing it wrong. And if you're talking about like showing it to the African American community, I understand that, but at the same time, if we're taking it from the angle of this is something that Sam has had to go through, when have we seen? There was one scene where the the cop was like, "Hey, is everything okay here?" When Sam slightly raised his voice at Bucky,
Right.
that was the one moment of discrimination, if that's what you would call it. I
Yeah.
assume
No.
it's is
Absolutely.
that okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one moment of I almost said disintegration, discrimination that we've seen out of the entire time we've known Sam as a character. So if you're going to make that part of his struggle as a person, if you're going to show that to people that need to relate to him, show it on a relatable level to where we can be made to understand where he's coming from as a person. Don't just say the words and then just be like, this is how it is, because the people that don't understand aren't going to understand. And it's just going to be one of those things that feels forced, like you're being talked at. And
Right.
obviously, I don't have an issue with the message at all. It's just, I think their attempt at making this message heard is just completely ineffective. It's
Yeah.
to the point to where it's potentially harmful, because when you come off as preachy, even with a good message, people are going to shut down. And chances are, because they're stubborn and stupid and they don't like to hear things that go against their
Right.
quote unquote truth, because we can have more than one truth in today's society. Don't get me started on that.
Right.
Then they're just going to resent you. They're going to resent what you stand for, and it's just going to be more harm than good. And
Yeah.
I'm fine with commentary, but I want commentary, if it's going to be done, make it to where it's saying something that can make a good change. Otherwise, you're just kind of virtue signaling.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think what really we could boil this down to is, again, this show needed more episodes.
It did. It
I
needed
don't
more
know- I don't
episodes,
know
or it needed to
why-
lose some fat.
Right. I'm assuming that they kept it. I haven't like done the math on this, but I'm assuming that if you were to take, because WandaVision had 30-minute episodes for a while. I'm assuming if you added up all the time, it's probably comparable to how much WandaVision we got.
No, it's longer.
But I felt like
Well-
it's longer.
I would say it's longer because it had, as opposed to WandaVision's 8 episodes, right?
Is it only 8?
I think it was 8.
Dang.
Falcon and Winter Soldier had 6 that all totaled at least 45 minutes. Some of them went significantly longer,
Yeah.
into like an hour. So it is longer than WandaVision.
Yeah. Wow. That's
But it
great.
just had
Maybe
much
WandaVision
more.
just didn't have that much to tell. But yeah,
WandaVision was focused. This was bloated.
WandaVision was focused. This had a ton going on. You had two huge characters who we really needed to spend time with and get to know better. And I think we did, but again, we didn't get. But I think we got enough of Sam. I think I got everything I wanted out of Sam. To your point of what you were talking about, I wish we could have understood Sam's struggle with racism and why he felt like a black man couldn't have become Captain America. I mean, they showed us that there's that one moment that we're talking about, right, where they're walking outside and the police officer comes and that happens. I think they showed that and said, check, okay, we've done that. Let's move on.
It very much felt like that.
It would have been nicer, like you said, had we maybe not had something so pointed in some other movies.
I mean, learn
where we
something
kind of
about
realized
Sam, where even if he just talks about it, about his struggles as a black man and why he sees the importance of having a black Captain America. Show us something where there's a connection with the character. Don't turn him into literally an action figure.
Yeah.
And that's
They did turn him into an action figure, though. That's actually how the costume leaked.
Yeah,
as I understand.
I remember that. But like he is. It just felt like they reduced Sam to an extent, and I'm not saying like there was good development for Sam, but for that aspect, it felt like they reduced him to simply the fact that he's a black man that wanted to make change for people like him. But like, where does this land for him personally, as as a character? Like, because every human being has a different struggles, and it's important to learn about those things so that we can all find that place of common ground. And so like when you reduce him to that, it just feels like you have nothing more to say than just racism is bad. And it's like, we know that, like, Most of us know that. Like, tell us, like, give us more. It just
And I
felt
think
again.
that's what you can boil it down
Yeah,
to. It was all good. It was good character development for Bucky and Sam. What we got, but it's just that we needed more and more time to flesh it out. And honestly, what it really is they tried to cram a lot in here because we also had John Walker. We had to learn a whole thing about John Walker. John Walker freaking had a redemption arc before the end of this episode was over. He came back and ended up somewhat saving, or at least trying to help save some of the hostages.
Worst part of the entire show was when he threw his shield and it did not immediately fall to the ground because he spot welded that sucker.
Yeah,
like it flew like a vibranium machine. I was like, nope.
Yeah, that was when that started working as functionally as it did. I was like, okay, come on now.
Huge missed opportunity for him to show up, have a heroic moment, and then it just go into the ground.
It should not have worked as well as that did. But yeah, so John Walker was someone who we didn't know at all, right? So we had to introduce him. We had to get justification, and I think they did a really good job with John Walker of introducing him, showing us, hey, on paper, this guy looks like a great Captain America. But then I think they did a great job pacing his descent. Because, I mean, we all hated him as soon as we saw him, right? But they were telling us all the great, here's why we picked him. Here's why he's a great captain. Here, but we saw slowly how he was a horrible Captain America and how he didn't stand for the things that Cap stood for, right?
And that's a good example of how to do that kind of, just referencing the racial commentary real quick. No one hated him because he was white. You weren't supposed to hate him because he was white, because you got to see him unravel and see why he's actually a unstable person and he's bad for the role. Like that felt like I'm really glad with the way they handled him, because they so easily could have, and I was afraid they were going to have made him a white supremacist, but they didn't. So good on them for not just being like, yes, they made a white supremacist Captain America because he looks kind of like Steve Rogers. I was very glad that they treated him like a person. He was one of the best parts of the show.
Yeah, they did a great job with his character. The Flag Smashers too. Like, I feel like we spent so much time with Carly, still don't really get what I know, because it's they told us several times like what she was wanting to do and why she was doing it. But I really feel like what they need. Well, I feel like what they wanted. I think when they sat down in their meeting and they said, "Okay, guys, here's the story we want to tell. We want to give the audience some time to spend with Sam and Bucky. We want to show Bucky all the trauma he's gone through. We want to flesh that out. We want to deal with that. We want him to deal with that. Sam, we want him to just, we want to get through why, him accepting being Captain America. We want to go through all that. Obviously, we got to bring in John Walker from the comics. We got to get in.
You got to bring in John. You can't have Captain America without John.
Right? We got it. That's going to be kind of the driving force there. How are we going to get these guys to like interact and like fight? It's like, oh, what if we gave them a common enemy? Oh, okay, great idea, Jeff. Who we got? Somebody, hey, grab a comic book, slap that sucker down, let's see who lands. And it's just like, oh, Flag Smashers, great. Let's go with it. Let's run with it. What can we do with Flag Smashers? Who were they again? What did they do? Forget all that. Like, they just, I feel like they just kind of took it and slammed a bad guy in there for John, Sam, and Bucky to all dance around,
Right. But they could have easily just made the Flag Smashers, and this probably would have even been more effective if they had not shown the face of who led the Flag Smashers until maybe like the last episode or two, and just not even developed them, because then go ahead.
This brings up another excellent point of this being a bloated show.
Yes, they spent
the freaking power broker.
My God,
and Shannon Carter, is it Shannon?
Sharon, yeah.
Thank you. Sharon being the freaking power broker. Like, what? Like, first off, duh. I mean, she was, as soon as we met her again, I mean, it was textbook hero becoming villain.
Like,
right?
she even straight up was like, yes, I steal things.
Yeah, she was like, oh yeah, you guys effing abandoned me after whatever movie it was, and you're admitting to me right now that, oh yeah, we kind of forgot about you. Like, are you okay? Do you need help? Like, no, I'm done now. Like, I'm the effing power broker. Like, obviously, we knew that was coming a mile away. Why? like, why didn't we just have the power broker? Like, why wasn't the
Mm-hmm.
power broker just the villain? You know what I mean?
You
Like,
yeah, you could have
why
made
did
the
we
power
need Carly?
broker the quote unquote like faced villain, where the Flag Smashers could have been an entity, which would have been a lot more effective to their storytelling, because the whole idea of the Flag Smashers, what worked with them, was that they were just people. But you spend so much time focusing on this 14-year-old named Carly, who I have no reason to care about, but you spend so much time trying to make me care about her. But it's just so much show not tell, or tell not show, that it's just like, if they had cut out all the stuff with Carly, they could have given at least one more character what they deserved. Because that was just so excessive, how much they put into her. And I don't know. It needed a lot of change. Did Jake die? Are you there, Jake? I don't hear Jake anymore, so this is my podcast now. So when Carly, in this last episode, we're gonna go through my notes that I made in my head. In this episode, Carly picks up a parking meter and she swings it at people, like she uses it as a weapon. And when she did that, I looked at Anna, because we were watching together, and I went, wow, she really is fighting for change. Easily top 3 puns that I've ever told. I really wanted you guys to hear about it, and it just took Jake literally disappearing into the void for me to actually be able to say it. This country, am I right? But what did you guys think of Falcon Winter Soldier? I know I'm a very nitpicky person just by nature. That's just my personality. So I have a lot of thoughts, and a lot of them are probably irrelevant to most people. So what did you guys think? I promise I won't judge. Unless if you say, I hated it because a black man's Captain America. If you say that, then you have no reason to be here. Please leave. Vortex says, I liked it, but Steve will always be my Captain America. Me too. And that's like, even if Bucky had gotten the shield, it would have been like, cool, let's see where this thing goes. But Steve is so hard to replace. Move on to Invincible. Okay. Jake, are you coming back? Okay. Vortex liked it. Cool. So we're going to move on to Invincible. For those of you who haven't watched Invincible, it is a show on Amazon Prime. It is based
There you are.
on...
Can I hear you now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Excellent.
There you go. Sorry. I don't know if I just disconnected to Wi-Fi or what, but everything just died for me.
Did you hear my pun?
No, I think I missed it. I tried. Once everything started crashing, I was like, let me get on the YouTube and see if he crashed too.
So I took the opportunity to tell probably my favorite pun that I've ever told. Where when Carly, and we'll move right on to Invincible after this. I've already told this, but you're going to hear it again because it's so good. When she picked up the parking meter and started swinging it at people like a weapon, I turned to Anna and I went, huh, she really is fighting for change.
Love it. Love it. Vortex, first off, welcome, Cam. Thanks for tuning into the live podcast. But Vortex also brings up a great, another example of bloat, okay? The frickin' kid who Sam worked with at the beginning, and he left his wings, right? Yep. I forget his name. It starts with a T. It's like
Tony.
Terrence.
Let's call him Tony.
No, it's not Tony.
It's Tony now.
Like that, though.
Terry.
Golly, that's going to drive me crazy. Anyway,
Tequila.
In the comics, he becomes Falcon after Sam. Mm-hmm. So they're setting that up, maybe.
But it was so insignificant that it's like we completely forgot he existed.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't matter by the end of it. So anyway, whatever. A lot of bloat there. Let's talk about Invincible, a show that does not have as much bloat, has handled all of the tons of crazy elements. They have handled very well.
Yeah.
Of course, if you're not familiar at all, Invincible is an animated show that we've talked about here for a while now, that we can kind of compare it to The Boys, but it's more mature than The Boys. It's very gory, but it's a great story happening right now. But we're going to talk full spoilers about the final episode. I don't know
Really,
that
the
we've
final
really,
2 episodes, because they both are basically just one really long episode that's just a thrill ride.
yes, and Can just put this in the chat, so I'll reference it here. Go watch Invincible unspoiled. If you have not watched
Yes.
Invincible, please. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Go watch Invincible
It's
on
so
Amazon
good.
Prime. It's worth watching before you've been spoiled on it. So,
Yes.
um, I think I don't know how much we've actually talked about on the podcast,
We
so we don't have to
talked
do an
up
episode play
to
by play. Have
we
we talked up to?
we talked up to the second to last episode, because remember when that episode happened, right, we were saying to each other that our criticisms of the plot kind of going slow were just completely addressed, because they just took it a mile a second,
So
basically.
episode 7, I don't know this. We never read. I haven't read the comics. I've seen people breaking it down, kind of tell me like, yeah, this actually happens much later in the run of the comic book, but whatever. So I don't know a ton of what happens in the comic book, but episode 7 felt like a whole season in one freaking episode.
Which is so funny, because it happens over such a quick amount of time.
These are hour-long shows again.
It felt like it
draw attention
happened
to
in
that.
an hour real time. Like,
It was
crazy.
so fast. A lot of payoff for what had been built up in the season. Like I feel like I think episode 6 was the one where they went to that college, right, and they fought the cyborgs, and like one of their friends got turned into a cyborg, and that was kind of sad.
I think that
and
was
it was
episode
funny.
6.
I think it was because that had a payoff almost immediately, right? Because those were immediately turned against Omni-Man, and it was so funny because when they carried those off, Cecil says something like, "Wow, these kids really put up a fight against you kid." And I was just like, "Oh, Cecil's fixing to give this man a job. This man ain't going to jail. He's got a job." So anyway, and even in the final episode, we see that that man still has a job, and we're gonna see what that all pays out to. But
Keep going with the rundown. I'll be back in like 10 seconds. Got to let Flynn in.
you're good. You're good. Lots of payoff happening. There was a kaiju that they fought early on in like episode 1 or 2. Omni-Man like really struggled with it. That got brought back. The Immortal who Omni-Man killed in episode 1. He comes back to join the fight. Like, just lots of things are happening all at once. Robot, who we've talked about before, of just, we've talked about how there's a lot of things happening. And our big complaint last time we talked about Invincible was that it was going slow. And our main comment on that was the first episode, we see Omni-Man kill the Guardians of the Globe.
Mm-hmm.
But we still, even at episode 6, had no idea why.
Yeah, we had that information, but up until until episode 7.
No, we don't. We really don't find out why.
Well, we
until
didn't know the
episode
why,
8.
but we knew that he did it. But the rest of the world didn't, or at least they didn't acknowledge it until that. And so it was that the whole plot of Omni-Man killing the Guardians of the Globe, that hadn't moved.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to get to this. So what we did talk about, and we even kind of said, like, at this point, I'm more interested in what Robot's doing, because Robot had several, last 10-second shot cliffhanger moments where it was just like he broke out the Mahler brothers or something. I think is right. He broke them out. They're building a cloning
Which
machine.
those are way better characters than I thought they would be when they introduced them. They're
They were
great.
really good. Yeah, I was not expecting them to be long-term characters, but they've stuck around. There was a lot of intrigue with what is Robot doing? Is Robot actually bad? Like, what's happening? And so in episode 7, we got that justification, right? He was asking them to clone Rex as a child to transfer his consciousness, which is like this deformed, apparently genius 30-year-old, into that young body, because he's fallen in love with Monster Girl.
Yeah, it made sense in world, but you kind of had the WandaVision thing where we expected more, but it was just like, nah, man, there's a girl. She cute.
That's it. That's
Give me a body.
It's all about the girl. You know what I'm saying? Which I'm really, and he's promised her now, right? And they kind of have a little thing going. It was kind of fun. And I'm glad they addressed it this way. He shows up, right? He shows up to the rest of the Guardians, and he's like, what is his real name again?
Rudy.
I forgot. Rudy.
I
He's like,
love
I'm
Rudy. He is at the moment my favorite character.
he's really good. But anyway, all the Guardians were like, "Do you really like this? Is so effed up. Like, what do you do?" But she. So I'm glad they addressed that, and it was effed up. You know that he took some dude, cloned him. You know, had all this stuff. But I'm glad that she does kind of end up accepting it in her own way, and is like, okay, like we can. I am accepting of this. I want to, you know, and he's going to help her break her curse or whatever. So that was sweet. But it seems like we've gotten. I don't think there's any more ultimatums hidden within Rudy. I feel like
Ulterior
this is
motive.
very much what ulterior motive. Thank you. I don't think there's anything else going on.
Yeah,
With
it
him.
seems like that
He
whole
is-
his cards are all on the table.
Yeah. Which and it's so funny. Him transferring to, I don't know, the human. I when he goes, the Guardians go out to fight and like help people. I still don't really understand why he got in a suit and
Yeah,
went.
like why do you even go? Just control it remotely.
He became Iron Man, and it was great. That's cool. That's fine. Whatever. But exactly, he has a chip in his brain to control his drones. Why not just send a drone? Like why not
Send
just go
multiple
out there?
drones. Send a giant building-sized mech.
His freaking mech was so cool.
It was.
That fought the Mauler brothers. That was great. So anyway, I don't know, but I still like Rudy. I'm curious where that's all gonna continue to go. But anyway, that was not that all happened in episode 7, but that was not the big thing, right? Omni-Man is fighting all of these things that Cecil's throwing at him. Everything's kind of coming to a head, and it's all about getting to Mark. Mark joins Omni-Man, helps him fight the kaiju. I guess it was Immortal shows up.
Yeah.
Omni-Man kills Immortal again, and that's the
Rips
moment
him
where
in
Mark
half.
says, "Oh my gosh, yes." That's the moment where Mark says, "Wait a minute, what is happening?" And then Omni-Man ends the episode with, "We need to talk."
Yeah.
The last episode, episode 8, starts, and I'll just say top level. I thought episode 8 was good, but again, the momentum in 7 was great.
7 was
We
the
should've
best
just kept going.
episode. Yeah.
We should
It-
we should have just kept going.
Yeah.
And episode 8 should have been the back half of what is episode 8.
Yeah, because
right?
episode 8 had its rise, but because its peak hit like halfway in the episode, there was a lot of back end. Like there was way too much stuff that happened after the climax, to where like it was just it felt weird pacing wise. They could have just made it one big episode.
Well, anyway, we finally learned the truth about Omni-Man, right? I forget his alien race. I want to say
Viltrum.
Venturi.
Viltrumites.
Viltrumites. Thank you.
Viltrum.
The Viltrumites. The Viltrumites, as Steven predicted, are not a peaceful race.
No!
That is to make the world better.
And if you
They
believed
are,
him for a second, no.
they are in fact tyrants, right? And so that we finally learned that they are crazy and are trying to take over the galaxy, right? And we come to find out that used to they just went to a world, dominated it, and moved on. But eventually they had too many worlds to keep track of. Their numbers were starting to thin, so they would send one person per planet to slowly break the planet down. And I still think there is some question to Omni-Man specifically of why he did what he did on Earth, and that being that he showed up and became a protector, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was part of it, was that they wanted them to go to the planet and be a quote unquote protector, but slowly start to break it down.
I mean, any planet, like in terms of just conquering, whether it's conquering a nation, conquering a planet, a people that don't want to necessarily fight back obviously are easier to conquer. So you bring Omni-Man as a hero. If you can end the conflict before it happens, just present him as a savior. And when he finally says like, "Hey, yeah, this is mine now," they are just like, "Yep, yes, it is." We cannot say no to you.
And that, I guess that makes sense. But still, like, the fact that he didn't do anything
Yeah.
until Mark got his
Yeah,
powers.
Mark was the key. It just seemed weird. There does seem like there's more.
Well, and I'm still curious, why was he the key? And I
Right.
don't think it was that. I don't think he was necessarily waiting for Mark. I do wonder if maybe maybe he was waiting. Maybe he was waiting to see, hey, is Mark going to get his powers or not? Because if he doesn't, he's a pet to me, and I'm going to kill him. Or hey, maybe he does get his powers. If I can get him to join me, maybe this will work out. Which it's so funny and it's so interesting, and I do think it's a great. Again, we've compared this to like your typical Superman story, right? And Superman was raised,
He was raised right.
Some good old folks,
Good old Kents. They're honest folk.
Taught him moral, taught him the honest way to live, how to be a good person, all that jazz. They raised him right. And so him being this incredibly powerful being, does no wrong, whatever. I think in a similar sense, not that Mark is just perfect. We've talked already about how I love that he is just a high school kid who he's over here going to Mars and is apparently
dooming the entire planet,
dooming the world, the Earth, maybe the universe, who knows? All because he wanted to get back to his girlfriend faster. You know what I mean? But to the same sense of he is kind of a Superman. Omni-Man and his mom really raised him right. And so it's so fun. It's so interesting to see now that Omni-Man has shown his true colors. It's like, why didn't you? And then again, if I'm Omni-Man, right? I'm this dude. I come to this planet. I'm like, yo, this chick's hot. I'm a hang with her for a bit, like whatever. If I did have an inkling that maybe my kid would become, would have powers and would be accepted by my home race, why would I raise him the way that they ended up
raising him as a human, not as a Viltrumite?
Exactly. And I know a lot of that probably came from his mom, and I understand that, but still.
It has to do, I think, with the fact that Omni-Man himself is not human. The Viltrumites see themselves as gods because, they pretty much just pwn anything that gives them any kind of opposition. So to him, it seems foolish for anyone who has the capabilities he has, for them to prefer humanity seems like a just impossible concept. I guess
that makes sense.
Yeah, it is as outrageous to him as we see it is outrageous to us, his perspective and ideals. But the difference is he's got a god complex and he's lived for thousands of years with that god complex. Mm-hmm. So like what it seems to me with everything is that he actually did get a taste of humanity. And we see that in at the end of their confrontation where Mark did get to him. And I think a lot of the reason of like why he waited so long could possibly be because he did drink the Kool-Aid for a little bit.
So here, I want to before you dive too deep into that, let's go through the rest of the episode. So, so once he and Mark kind of have their conversation, they fight, right? He's like, if you're gonna side with humanity,
did they fight?
then you'll die with humanity, right? And so he, Omni-Man basically wipes the floor with Mark.
He wipes
the planet,
Chicago. Mount Everest. He wipes several different parts of the planet with him.
Is insane. It was so dark and just depressing, right? So first thing that happens is some jets come and attack Omni-Man. And Cecil, who's directing them all, he's like, I know this ain't going to work, but maybe it'll give Mark some time to figure something out.
Real quick shout out, Cecil is such a good Nick Fury type character.
He is I love really him. Like Cecil. And we'll talk more about him towards the end because there's some interesting things with him that at the end that I'm really curious where it's going to go. But anyway, so some jets, whatever. Omni-Man starts taking out the jets. One guy ejects. Mark works so hard to save this guy. He saves him, puts him on the ground. Omni-Man lands on the ground, punches the guy's head off right in front of Mark.
Just grabs his head and just squeezes it like a like a water balloon.
Yeah, I mean,
right in front of him,
just dark.
Yep.
And it basically what Omni-Man is trying. The message he's trying to get is like humanity is pointless. Yep. None of this. When you can live thousands of years, these people's 100-year life is meaningless. Doesn't matter at why would you work so hard to save them?
I
I
finally
was just
died.
about to ask Steven if you had been on the same run this
Yeah,
whole time.
this had been the same run the whole time, and I was going so well, but my guns just sucked.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Then I forget exactly how they get there, but I guess he throws him or punches him so hard he goes to Chicago, right?
Yep.
And Mark hits a building and starts to level the building, but also like tore up. There were so many people dead just because he hit the ground.
Yeah. Like ruined probably multiple city blocks, and you see people just in
The
pieces
blast of his impact,
Yeah.
people get torn to bits. So he tries to save some folks in a building, and of course they get torn to bits. He still doesn't get it. So Omni-Man takes him underground. They go in a subway, and this is the scene that you've probably heard about if you haven't seen the show or whatever. But he holds Mark by the head straight, and a subway hits them, and of course they're both invincible. So the train just goes right through them, or they go right through the train, and so literally just a line of people get
you get a
obliterated.
first person perspective of Mark flailing his arms trying to break free to get out of harm's way, and by harm's way I mean the people that he's running into, but it's pointless, and you see through his eyes him just ripping through people, an entire subway train of innocent people.
So that was incredibly dark.
Yes.
The next thing is, I forget. I don't know. Anyway, they end up on Mount Everest, which is apparently a pretty significant location for them as characters. Obviously, there was a moment a few episodes back where they raced to Mount Everest, I think. They kind of have a conversation on the top of it, whatever. Anyway, he causes an avalanche, which is another disaster that happens. But that, to me, that one at this point, it was just like, oh my God, like there's so many people dying right now. But anyway, he basically, God of War, punching Zeus in the face. Omni-Man just wails on Mark.
Yep.
And he has a flashback about Mark in playing baseball, and he at the time was just like, "This is stupid. There's so many other things I could be doing." And the wife, the mom, explains, kind of like, "This is what humanity is. It's these small things. Like, look at his joy. Look at all this. Blah blah blah." Anyway, it's a great memory. It's a great flashback. He stops punching Mark, right? But then he still is hung up on like, why would you want to save these people? Why would you care about these people? Like, what's going to be left for you?
Yeah.
You know, in 1,000
he literally
years, they're going
just
to die.
does not understand. Like it is foolish to him.
Yeah. So this is the best line though. I want to get to this. So he's just like, why would you do this? Why would you care about these people? What would you have at the end of that time? What would be left for you? And Mark just says, you. Like that's what would be left. Is it would still be you and me, you know? And
Which just
as somebody who is about to become a dad, I
didn't even think of that.
personally lost it.
Yeah.
I personally lost it. And obviously Omni-Man, he hears that and just he might have continued to argue, but the argument was over. You know, the argument had been lost. He flies up to space. There's this great scene where like the blood, he's been covered in blood this whole time. The blood burns off of him. Yeah. And as he leaves, like his tear flies onto camera, and that's the last we've seen of Omni-Man at this point. And
just shout out to freaking
hard.
J.K. Simmons. I've joked saying Omni-Man is his best work since the Yellow Peanut M&M, but I've always been serious that he just does such a good job. In that scene, he sells it so well. And just, oh man, he does a great job. Omni-Man, just as far as writing is concerned, he is such a well-done Thanos-type villain to where they are so bought in to what they, like, to their motivation, that they believe that it is gospel truth. And like, he sells that so well, because there are those things where it's like, why didn't he just do this? But it's because he doesn't think of that as a possibility. He is so bought into his ideals that, which makes it even more just poetic, I guess, that this person that's been this demigod, basically, that's been alive for thousands of years, who sees humanity as less than cockroaches, the one thing that's able to break him and actually show him humanity, what humanity is his son. And like that just speaks to the power of like father son relation, well, father, like parental to child relationships even. And it's just such a powerful moment that, oh man, it's so good. It's so good. You don't expect this from the show that boasts itself as the more gory version of The Boys, but
Well, and that's just like the closest thing in comparison right now, right? Is just that it's a superhero story that's dark, and the hero is the bad guy.
It is a legitimately well-written story. It wears its like Robert Kirkman inspired stuff, all that. It wears that on its sleeve, but it's so much more than that. You're missing out if you haven't watched it, and if you haven't watched it and you stayed and listened to all this, why? You ruined it.
Well, and we won't go through all that's in the rest of the episode. It's basically just kind of picks up the pieces and kind of hints to what's to come, right? There's a lot of just kind of unpacking what had just happened, and there's some great character moments there. One thing I wanted to talk about with Cecil. So Cecil basically asked Mark to replace Omni-Man, and obviously Mark didn't do that. I think part of that is he doesn't feel worthy, but he's also still kind of unpacking everything that's happened. But Cecil shows him, he takes him into the White Room, right? And then he tells him, like, hey, turn on the lights. And then suddenly it's like this whole lab, like they're putting Immortal back together again, hopefully to bring him back to life. Like, we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
But he mentions the light of just like, the water in America.
Yeah, we've been putting a chemical in the tap water that makes where you can't see this certain level of light. So yeah, most people just don't see anything that goes on.
Well, and he has this line, and I watched this in a breakdown. He says the line, we use this frequency a lot. Whoever it was that I was watching doing the breakdown, I forget it. Maybe it was Heavy Spoiler Show, I think. He said, they use it a lot, and we're going to see that. So I don't know where Cecil's going to end in this show. And I think for the most part, he's a force for good. But I think a lot like Nick Fury, he may cross that line. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Already we've seen these cyborg things, right, that he's funded this whole project. They don't really address it when he sends them out to fight Omni-Man. Debbie, I think, asks, like, who are these people? And he said, they're soldiers fighting for their country one more time, or something. Dead soldiers who are fighting for their country one more time. It's like, what are the implications of what are you doing here? Like, how far are you willing to go, and what is that going to really mean? So I'm really curious where that's going to go from there. But anyway, if like you said, Steven, if you're not watching Invincible, you really need to be.
Yeah.
So it's a great show. That is about time for our podcast.
That's about past time.
About past time. We normally we'd have like a little intro doo-doo music bit here, but we're just gonna wrap it up from here. Thank you, Steven. That was a great bit. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching this episode of Chortle Cast. We do hope you enjoyed it. Live special episode. If you did like it, there's a couple things you can do to help us out. Number one, if you're watching on YouTube, you're already at chortlegames.com. You can like this video, share it with your friends, leave us a comment. Keep chatting with us in the chat until we end. This also airs on Facebook. That's at Chortle Games on Facebook. You can like that page, share it with friends, leave comments, likes, all that good stuff. For this live episode, we're actually also live streaming on Twitter, which is at Chortle Games. So, hey, Twitter. And also on Twitch.
Sorry.
Twitch.tv. Twitch.tv/Chortle_games over there. So, this was a lot of fun. We did a full live episode here. This is something, if you like this, let us know, because this is something I think in the future we could do more of. I've ordered a PC that hopefully should be able to add a lot of things to what we can do with the live stream. I've been watching some stuff about how to do game perspective streams. So I'm trying to figure that stuff out, but that's kind of the piece of the puzzle that we could, first off, it would improve our normal streams where Steven and I are playing stuff, but also that kind of helps us to do the podcast live if we wanted to. So anyway, let us know what you thought of this.
Even if you hated it, let us know so that we never do it again.
Let us know. There you go. That's the whole thing. Steven, thanks for playing Returnal and showing that off for the people who were watching. Um, Not in the gulag said pre-builts make me sick. I wonder if he
He
mean. Do you
he
mean like?
your PC. He's a,
Oh,
he's
oh.
a purist, build from scratch kind of person. The issue
I
is
mean,
that you can't
if
build
it
from
makes you
scratch right
feel any
now.
better, if it makes you feel any better, I picked all of the pieces and I just hired someone to build it for me. Does that make sense? So that's all that's really happening. So that's maybe a little better. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. We will be streaming the rest of the week. It's going to be a crazy week again for me. I'm just on the crazy train right now until my son gets here, and probably even after that, my crazy train is just going to keep on chug-a-lugging. So be sure to follow us on our Discord, and of course, be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and all these others services, and you'll see us when we go live. But we will be doing some live streams later this week, so be sure to tune in for that. So, guys, thanks for tuning in and watching. Steven, thank you as always. Your insightful conversation is always
Yep.
a pleasure.
I'm glad you appreciate it, even after I derail conversations way too far off. I enjoy
I love it.
It's
It's
fun.
all good. It's all good. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.